Welcome back to Perkins Pipes. Got this gorgeous, gorgeous red and white Chacom bent billiard that I got not too long ago at the Briar and the Burley, the excellent brick and mortar store in Bloomington, Indiana. And it seemed appropriate to have this pipe out because it's made in the area of France where Julius Caesar was fighting in his Gallic Wars. And you see I've got my Roman personas hat on here from my reenactment time. So you can kind of have a guess as what we're going to talk about. As always, folks, let's get this guy lit. Let's get to talking. The reading of Julius Caesar's war commentaries in high school Latin classes has gone in and out of favor over the years. Now, he's been a standard for second year high school Latin in no small part because his writing is very good. It's clean, clear, simple, straightforward Latin. So it makes a good author to transition into for students after they've learned the basics of the language. Of course, a major figure in Roman history, world history. Another reason to read his stuff. And during pretty much the decade of the 50s BC, Caesar was what they call a proconsul. He was consul of, or governor of Gaul. And during that 10-year time, he waged numerous battles. Ultimately, this was a war of conquest. There are some pretenses of defense and so forth, but ultimately it was a war of conquest. And as such, I would agree with the people who say not necessarily a good thing, right? I mean, who wants somebody coming into your territory, waging war on you, conquering your people? So, fair enough. It's like I say, he's gone in and out of favor, and I think, especially as we headed into the kind of the Vietnam era in the 70s, he fell out of favor. Kind of has come and gone over the years. And one of the things I address with my students even today is why we read him. As I point out to them, some of them may go into a military life. Most of them will not. So why are a bunch of high school kids reading the war accounts of Julius Caesar? And I think, and let's be clear, what I'm about to say, you can get in a variety of sources. But I do think there are some aspects of leadership that you can draw from his accounts, okay? So if you say, well, I like the idea of talking about leadership, don't like the idea of talking about it from Caesar, fine. Find a different author, find a different text. But we do read Caesar, and I happen to have here at my house an old version. This dates to 1893, Caesar's Gallic War. And there's just a short passage I want to mention to you from here and then. A similar passage from a poem written some years after the time of Caesar that relates the same aspect of leadership. So in the first book of his De Bello Gallico, on the war in Gaul, or on the Gallic War, he describes a situation in which he needed to get some food for his men. He turned his troops aside, headed toward the nearby town of Bibracte, which was the lead city of a tribe called the Aijui, or the Haijui. The Gauls that he had been engaged with turned around themselves and attacked Caesar from the rear. He quickly drew his men up on high ground, on a hill, arranged his troops in his typical triple battle line formation. And then he writes this. And you have to know that Caesar always refers to himself in third person, or almost always refers to himself in third person. So imagine if Steve were talking to you about Steve's pipe, as Steve was sitting here on Steve's deck and recording an episode for Steve's channel. It seems a little bit odd. But as he sent these reports back to Rome, it really was a way of keeping his name in the public ear and in the public eye. All right, this is social media before there was social media. All right, so he wanted to make sure everybody knew the name Caesar. And so he writes, as he's describing his troop arrangements on a hill here near Baracta, he says, Caesar, primum suo deinde omnium ex conspectu remotis equis, ut aequato omnium periculos spem fugae toleret, cohortatus suos proelium commissit. Caesar first, with his own horse removed, then with the other horses removed from the sight of all, so that the danger might be made equal for all, and he might take away any hope of escape or flight, urged his men to begin battle. All right. Now, I'm bringing this up every year that we read this. And, first of all, Caesar could be lying here, okay? He could be. Just let's assume for a moment that he's not. He's already deployed his cavalry, so we're not talking about cavalry here, but he is talking about his officers who are on horseback. And he doesn't want any horses around for them, lest if the battle should go against the Romans, they have got a quick escape. Right, so he wants to make sure the danger is equal for all, as he says, periculo aequato omnium, with the danger made equal for all. Okay. It's a subtle little point, but he says suo, with his own, and then he says equis remotis ex conspectu omnium, with other horses then removed from the sight of all, but with his own first. Caesar got off his own horse and was willing to share the same dangers as the rest of his men. I always bring this up to the students. Whether Caesar's lying on this particular point or not, his men were certainly loyal to him. When it came to the end of the war and the Senate had ordered Caesar to return to Rome and to cross from some Gaul back down into Italy, and he had to cross the northern boundary between Gaul and Italy, which was the famous Rubicon River, or rather, it has become famous. It's really not much more than a small stream, but it's become famous because Caesar was supposed to renounce his command. He had to lay down his command, basically formally retire, all right, if you will, and then his troops could come back across the river and into Roman-held territory. He didn't do that, and in crossing the river at the head of an army, he was, in essence, acting as a foreign invader and committing an act of civil war. Well, that's a pretty big deal to get the men to commit an act of civil war against Roma Mater, right? Mother Rome. So we know the men were loyal to him. And I think it's things like this little scene right here that add to that. His willingness to endure the same hardships that they endured. And again, hey, I'm not going to ask you to do something that I myself am not willing to do. And I pointed out to the students, I said, whether you're leading a Fortune 500 company or a family, okay, whether you're coaching your own children's little league team someday, or you're an NBA or NFL coach, doesn't matter. You're going to lead something someday. Learn how. Learn how. And again, you may not like what Caesar did in Gaul and other things he did politically. That's fine. We could have that conversation. But the guy did know how to lead. And one of the ways he seemed to do that was with his willingness to share the hardships of the people that he led, and to say, you know what, I'm not above you. I'm no better than you. And I'm gonna lead by example. Now, some years later, there was a poet named Lucan, and he wrote an epic poem about the battle that ensued after Caesar got back to Italy, between Caesar and his forces and the forces of the Senate, led by the commander Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus. This ended in a defeat for Pompey and the senatorial forces in western Greece, in an area called Pharsalus. Pompey then fled to Egypt, was assassinated by Ptolemy, and so the senatorial army was basically leaderless at this point. And had to get back to Rome. Now, you're going to pardon me, because my piece of paper just blew off. What I got here is my translation of part of this poem that I wanted to share with you. So the senatorial army had to get back to Rome. And so the leadership fell to a well-known and much loved and respected man named Cato. Now, Lucan wrote this poem in dactylic hexameter. I've only translated part of it. And I translated it into it's a heptameter, and it's iambic, and it rhymes. It's basically rhyming 14ers is what it is. But at any rate, as Cato is leading the senatorial army back across the deserts of North Africa, they've dropped down and then crossing North Africa, then we'll come back up into Italy. He says, he's trying to encourage the men because it's tough going across the desert. And he says, must any soldier be assured of danger there's relief, so taken with life's sweetness, let him seek another chief. Thus let me be the first to step upon the burning sand, the first whom blazing sun may strike in this snake-poisoned land, and from my fate you well may see what dangers are at hand. Then let him thirst who sees me drink, who sees me seek the shade, let him alone faint with the heat, or fall, if on parade he sees me ride before the troops while they as yet march on. For whether I command or serve, I would not have it known. And the line there, dux on miles eam, whether I am going as a general or as a soldier. It's the same idea there, that the general, the truly motivating general, is the one who is willing to go right along with everybody else, right? Whether I command or serve, you can't tell the difference, right? Because I'm in it with you guys. So that's part of why I enjoy teaching Caesar. I enjoy bringing in that poem from Lucan, and connecting that with ideas of leadership in the modern age. So talk to me about that. Talk to us. Share some thoughts in the comments here. What leaders have you known, maybe bosses you worked for, coaches you've had, who have really led by example, who have shown that they would not ask of their people something that they were unwilling to do? How'd that make you feel? Did that inspire you? Have you done something similar in your own company or your family or whatever? Does that idea of leading by example still play out with you? Would love to hear your thoughts. Folks, this is a good smoking bite, and I'm going to enjoy smoking this when the video is over. As Malcolm Guite likes to say, I do these little things in order at last to do nothing. And I'm getting ready to do me some nothing. Or as I like to say in Latin, Parva ut tandem, nihil agam. Have a wonderful day.